Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you all a bit about, I guess, week 2 of Warlock on 10.2 PTR. This week we had 4 bosses being raid tested, a council fight, a single target / cleave fight, and 2 patchwork-esque fights. Tested them all, footage on the channel here, and I have some thoughts about Warlock, Destro, Demo, and Aff. So we're going to discuss all that tonight, I guess, in a raid setting, as well as a little bit of Mythic Plus, and then also look at an interesting spreadsheet that's popped up recently. Someone is compiling a spreadsheet of all the damage, I guess, raid testing results for every boss. I'll have a section towards the end of the video if you want to check it out, and a link down below in the description. Like always, Weekly Wars add-ons, links to Twitch, Discord down below, all for free for you guys if you want them. At the same time, I want to give a shout out to my patrons before we get into the video. For all support on Patreon, guys, like always, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon or anything, TikTok or Twitter or anything up here, well, links all up there. And at the same time, the 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet is going live on Patreon within a week and a half or so. The tier 3 Fellow Guard rank or higher gets early access to that if you're interested. And yeah, that being said, let's get right on into the discussion. Destruction has been in an interesting spot since we tested the first boss here, being Nora Root. The single target of Destro feels fine. The Havoc Cleave of Destro also feels fine. Now, there is an incredible amount of lag both on Nora Root and Agira, the second boss in the raid, but we played Destro on both, and like I said, the patchwork felt okay. When it came to multiple ad spawning is when the lag really started to hit, but even with that being the case, Destro sort of kept up comparatively to other, I guess, more melee meat grinder kind of classes. Now, obviously you're playing Destro with Crushing Chaos, so you have a lot of burst here, as you can see off the pole, but I was surprised at, number one, how simple Destro felt, whether you like or hate the madness changes. You basically build shards and cast chaos bolts and maintain immolate, and you are playing Destro at a high level. This fight did offer a lot of potential cleave, like we see the Lashers coming in here, getting some Rain of Fire value with Inferno. It's possible maybe you just play Cataclysm here, depending on your strategy or how long they live for, but it felt like a pretty solid Destro boss, and Destro in general has felt similar to what Aberrus, or how it feels in Aberrus now, where it does solid sustained single target. If there's ag cleave, it can do a decent bit of that too. And if ads live for a while with Rain of Fire and Inferno value, it's also pretty good at that. I think one of Destro's larger issues, though, is the fact that your tier bonus is based around Dimensional Rift. And while Dimensional Rift is a fun ability to hit, you can see me opening rifts right here and doing damage, it does give you a little bit of mobility in the move. But the unfortunate part is that in cleave-based settings, where you're cleaving like on these spears here or in sustained cleave, Dimensional Rift really doesn't do much at all. You'd rather have Chaos Incarnate or just not play the talent in general and just, you know, play a 2-minute Infernal build in Mythic Plus. And that leads to an interesting spot of, do we want to maybe possibly look at redesigning Destro's tier set to not be based around Dimensional Rift and give applicability in Mythic Plus as well as raiding? Or are we okay just opening multiple rifts in raiding and having Destro's baseline profile of Rain of Fire, Inferno, and 2-minute Infernal be good enough in M+. I do think with proper tuning, you could just do that. Leave Destro with Inferno, Rain of Fire, 2-minute Infernal, Crushing Chaos value, and have it be okay. But if that is likely, if that's the outcome of what happens with Destro, I think chances are high you just don't play Dimensional Rift. You don't really play your tier set at all in Mythic Plus. Just opt for higher eye level or better itemized options like Haste Crit Gear, and just basically be a tierless class in Plus, which is what I'm sure Blizzard doesn't want that. So we'll see where it goes. In rating, the bonus felt good. Destro felt fine. Solid, sustainable-ish single target. No more worries about madness with, just 5-second madness chaos bolt windows. It does feel pretty empty. You're just building shards and casting chaos bolts, maintaining eradication once every 6 or 7 seconds, but at the same time, if given the option of either having Madness with no duration increase in 10.2 or giving us Chaosbringer, I think we opt for Chaosbringer. So it feels like Destro overall looks pretty decent in the raid. There are some fights like Council of Dreams that have Havoc-based cleave, which Destro can crank on. At the same time, single target, it's not bad. So we'll see where it goes, see where tuning lands, but even if Demo ends up being pretty much a useless spec this tier, Destro feels pretty solid. It can likely carry lock on a handful of fights. Up next, we have Affliction, which has felt surprisingly decent in Amir Dusil raid testing. Now, it's so far, currently in Aberrus, it's pretty solid, but keep in mind, one of the big things from Aberrus that we're losing heading into 10.2 and Amir Dusil is our Clash Trinket, which greatly devalues the Malevolent Visionary build. Now, I guess, glass half full for us, our tier bonus works around Soul Rot, which, we can feed into via playing Soul Eater's Gluttony for a reduced cooldown on Soul Rot, either syncing with Vile Taint or syncing with Soul Rot. There's a handful of builds that are being tested right now. This fight here, Smolderon, rewards you for holding your CDs. It gives you a 100% damage amp in the intermission, so damage meters here are a little skewed and things. But either way, a spec like Aff can do pretty good damage in those phases. At the same time, Gnarl Root, the first boss, has a large damage amp as well coming out of phase 2 once he's stunned by burning all the roots, and having a tier bonus that gives you a 50% increase to your next 3 raptures whenever you cast Soul Rot feeds even more into those damage amps. Now, outside of that, it's felt like Aff. You maintain Dread Touch, you maintain your dots, Agony, Corruption, Siphon, Vile Taint, Soul Rot. It's the same Aff you've been playing since 10.0. It's the same bread and butter, maintain dots, cast raptures, do damage. It's felt fine in some of these fights. This fight was a little tough with with the movement coming in from the fire ring, soaking orbs and setting up dots early. Trying to Vile Taint and Soul Rot here is awkward with dumping raptures, but the more we pulled this fight, I think the better our damage, my damage, everybody's damage would be. I didn't get all my raptures dumped here before damage amp fell, and either way, Aff's profile in this fight did feel pretty decent. There's also Council of Dreams testing, which I played Aff on for the first 2 pulls here. Now, unfortunately, I forgot that Affliction's tier bonus is bugged. When you extend your dots, like Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, if you're playing Absolute Corruption, whenever you rapture, it will override the absolute permanent corruption on your targets and give you a 2-second corruption. So I would play absolute corruption on this fight 100%. When the targets jump around, it is so hard to apply Siphon Life and maintain 9 dots, 10 dots, 12 dots, a million spinning plates here. At the same time, we initially had played an Inevitable Demise build with Soul Rot and Drain Life, which led to a pretty good opener here. You can see 3 targets, our tier bonus once again giving us 3 big raptures, having Drain Life and all that with Soul Rot. I found out pretty quickly that that likely wasn't going to be the play in the long run with targets jumping around a bunch. Either way, once they fix Affliction's tier set to be, to work with Absolute Corruption things, I wouldn't mind retesting this fight as Aff. Maybe not playing an ID build, but either way, having 3 permanent targets, all taking full damage, Aff could do a pretty large amount of damage on this fight, especially with its current tuning and how the tier bonus works, having a reduced cast time on Soul Rot and giving you those dot extensions. The downside is that not every mob is stacked in this fight a whole lot. Once again, if you're maintaining 1 dot, basically being Agony, instead of literally 9 dots here, I guess it'd be 3 Agonies versus 9 total. If you're playing AC versus Siphon Life, it becomes much, much easier. This fight also felt pretty awkward at the start, but once we got used to it and the mechanics became sort of second nature to us, it actually was a pretty good fight. This likely is a pretty good Aff fight. We played Destro as well with Mayhem on it, and it also cranks. You just hit 1 target and hey, you cleave passively, which is also pretty cool. But in the end, this is likely both a good Destro and Aff fight, but we'll see where it goes. I would expect the fight to change a little bit, maybe mechanic-wise, pacing-wise, cadence-wise, but yeah, Locke felt pretty solid in this fight. Boomkin destroyed it, Shadow did very well also, but once tuning comes in, honestly, this feels like a pretty solid Luck fight where you might want to in a progression-based setting. The only real downside I felt with Affliction when it came to rating, like on Gnarl Root, I guess this fight in the sense as well, is that, like we talked about in the feedback, the Affliction tier set only is affected by Malefic Rapture. It only increases your Rapture damage and also only makes Rapture extend your dots. If Blizzard added a clause to have either Rapture or Seed of Corruption do that, it would make the spec feel infinitely better. You wouldn't be spamming Seed here, but when it comes to like an M+ base setting or a heavy AoE base setting where you want those dots to be, applied via Vile Taint and Seed or so, and then have them extended a little bit possibly, maybe just have some relevancy to buff your seeds with damage, with that 50% damage amp, or have them increase the duration of your dots on targets that are hit by Seed explosions. That would go a long way with Affliction quality of life in settings like Gnarl Root, even at times in spots like this, if all 3 were stacked, right? So we'll see where it goes. You typically don't really see it in 3 targets, but either way, just, Mythic Plus relevancy for a tier bonus I think needs to be there, and currently with Aff's, I don't really think it is. And I'm not sure if Aff's profile, it's probably the best spec currently in Plus on PTR, I'd say, but it's still mid, I think, comparatively to the other specs that are on the higher end in M+ in 10.2. And finally, that brings us to Demonology. Now, this is the first boss of the first day of raid testing, Gnarl Root, and there was an incredible amount of lag on this boss. So melee classes, the meat grinder, and pet-based classes like Demonology were doing essentially more damage because pets weren't lagging, at least not as bad as players were. And honestly, even with that being said, Demo's damage was still not incredibly impressive. I think this fight is likely a good Demonology fight. A lot of stat cleave when the ads do spawn in phase 1. in phase 2 when they spawn, and also the boss has a 100% damage amp whenever he comes out of phase 2 back into phase 1 when he's stunned, essentially burning. Now Demo does have a good bit of burst here. We did lust on pole. Keep in mind, once again, people are lagging a little bit. We did lust on pole here, but Demo with lust and PI, we didn't get PI here, but Demo with lust and portal and everything typically has a good bit more burst than what you saw there. And what you'll see in a moment here as well is Demo drop off when it comes to damage. There's a bit of a meat grinder in here, obviously. You know, there's a Devastation Evoker going wild, the Shadow Priest, the Ret Paladin. Not as much AoE, partially due to the nerfs to AoE, less imps, I mean, all that kind of stuff. But Demo, even when it comes to the phase 2 transition back into phase 1, like ramp-wise, felt pretty subpar. This is the Reign of Tyranny Nether Portal Cleave build too, which even without PI, with Lust, you typically do a pretty good bit of damage, but the damage just wasn't there. Constantly dropping off in damage. The sustain still feels pretty bad. I'm hoping that we get more tuning at some point this week. Maybe a bit of changes, some reversions on the caps to Reign of Tyranny, the caps to Tyrant, the caps to Portal, the caps to Pit Lord, something. The burst was surprisingly okay, like I said, but when it came to like just the damage amp part of the fight, which is coming up in a moment here, Demo felt lackluster. I think I Tyranted at like 122k in the boss, something like that, and ended up at like 129k or 130. It is certainly lacking, especially for being a minute and a half, you know, Reign of Tyranny based spec. Now, the cool thing is that, I mean, Demo does still have that solid, I guess, like stacked damage profile. If it was tuned properly, this fight, you can see, is likely a pretty good Demo fight. A lot of stacked ag cleave, whether they're on the boss or just stacked in general off to the side. Demonic strength or bombers, implosions, dog chomping, Felguard cleave, all that can lead to a pretty strong profile here. You can see us burning the roots here. The last low root should be burned, the second off to the side here. We're going to begin Tyrant Ramp, I think, in second tier as well, building to 5 shards. There's my Grimoire. Here come my dogs. I'm at 115k, 114. The boss is stunned. Let's see what we can ramp to. 114, 115. There's the last hand. Doesn't even really matter. Well, there's 9 imps. It's okay. We're going to Tyrant at 118k, 120, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh, we're slowing down. Keep in mind, the boss is stunned here, taking 100% increased damage. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Barely 130k. That is a Reign of Tyranny Grimoire-based Tyrant. So as you can see, Demonology not looking the best, but hopefully tuning will come. Once again, like we said earlier, when it comes to lusting on pole, it still has decent burst. You're still playing Portal, still playing Tyrant and all that, but it still feels like it has those peaks and valleys, but the peaks and valleys just... The peaks are nowhere near as high, and the valleys, well, the valleys are a little lower as well. So hopefully in the next week or so, we learn more about Demonology, the fate of Demo, what's going to happen with it. And plus the changes to like bombers, I guess the buff to bombers via Volatile Fiends is solid. The nerfs to Imp Gang boss though and things are a bit unfortunate. We'll see what happens, but I'm not incredibly excited about Demonology stuff right now. Hopefully there's more coming in the near future, or we know more. But at this point, Demo is in a rough spot, I would say. And the sheet I was talking about here, I did not make this off the bat. This is basically a 10.2 PTR testing compilation sheet of all the damage, all the stuff from every fight that's been tested. The Discord, RobyDoby, Twitter, right here. I guess WoW progress links, healer sheet, raid testing, all logs. Make a copy if you want to edit it yourself. So basically, if you want to do what I'm going to do in a minute here, make a copy, go to File, make a copy. You can just do whatever you want. At the same time, share with your friends and family. GG. There we go. So down here, these are the bosses that are in the raid currently. We tested these 4, Gnarroot, Igira, Council, and Smolderon. I can't zoom in anymore. I'm sorry. Hopefully, if it's small, it maybe hit full screen. I'm sorry. I can't do anything else about it. I've zoomed as much as I can without, you know, clipping data and things off of the screen over here. So now the one thing here. So if you want to... This is all of the Igira, or sorry, Gnarroot, like top damage over the course of the fight. Keep in mind, there's a box over here, include or only include kills. These durations, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, or 2.5 minutes, a long time, kill, not kills, 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 no kills. I would filter by kills only, realistically. Now, you're going to see a pattern here across most of these. A lot of BM, a lot of Ret, a lot of Rogues, and Shadow Priest. And for the most part, keep in mind on Gnarroot and Igira, day 1 of testing, there is an incredible amount of lag for most raid groups. Now, I would assume in a sense it might favor melee a bit more. Like on Gnarroot being like a meat grinder, all the ads are into the boss, just spam, I don't know, spam AoE abilities and big damage done. I would assume BM with Beast Cleave can do that. Outlaw, Ret Paladin, Shadow, I mean, yeah. But either way, This will show like the top highest DPS from whatever spec, you know, is parsing in the fight, take the lowest. Now, keep in mind, once again, testing is not about damage, right? Especially early testing, especially heroic testing, right? It's about seeing the bosses. Do they work mechanically? How does the boss look? How does it function? Is it fun? How does the raid feel? Is your class working? Are abilities broken? As in, like, not functioning? Is your tier set broken? And then at the same time, like, damage overall, are things overtuned, undertuned? How can we tweak and tune things, right? So damage is relevant, but if you're going into testing a boss on PTR with the mindset of doing max damage, you're not testing right. But either way, it's cool seeing the data. So, like I said, if you want to include kills only, check this box over here. I would recommend doing that. You can filter by classes over here too. So let's say, you know, on Gnarl Root, Outlaw Rogue, BM, Rep Paladin, Shadow Priest, some Afflux up here. Seed with Soul Flame, big damage, I'm sure. Unholy Warrior, some Enhanced Shamans, TKs of both specs here. A decent ish like mix once you get sort of into here, give or take a little bit. No mages, unfortunately, but if you want to, like, let's say we go to the next boss. There's a lot of one spec, let's say, dominating that boss. You can filter by specs over here, which is very cool. Click the kills only box again. Let's say BM is annoying you. Too much green on the screen here. Click BM and it'll filter out all the VM parses, and we'll show you what else is here. YouTube, put down in the comment section what class is going to be nerfed in a few days on PTR. I couldn't tell you, but if you guys have any thoughts, you know, and any theories, toss it down below. But realistically, a lot of BM, some Rogue, some Red Paladin, some Shadow Priest. This was basically a patchwork fight with some light cleave on some spears that spawned. Going down more Ret on a Enhanced Shaman and a Shadow Priest. Filter out Beastmaster, make it easier on yourself. Ret, Shadow, some DKs, Frost and Unholy, and a Enhanced Shaman. Warlock, not the best in this fight. It was okay, also very laggy. I think AF would be higher if the lag wasn't as bad for most groups here. Destro wasn't too bad either, but overall not an incredible lock fight from what I'd seen. But also at the same time, a lot of similar culprits, I guess, at the top here. A lot of Ret, a lot of Shadow, couple BMs, give or take. Once tuning hits, that could change up a little bit. Moving on to Council of Dreams, which was tested this week. Well, I guess last week at this point. It was a permanent 3-target cleave fight. A lot of boomkins here. Filtered by kill. A lot of balanced druids. Unsurprisingly, Shadow Priest, 3 targets, maintaining dots. They do jump around a lot, so it's hard to maintain dots in a sense. I was playing AF. AC is bugged, so you can't really play AC in the fight with your tier set, and they jumped so often. I mean, Siphon Life was literally a loss. It wasn't worth playing. A lot of boomkins. Starfall, very strong ability, very hard to play with. Enhanced Shaman up here, which is surprising, actually. Enhanced is doing pretty well, even on a Council Cleave fight. Shadow Priests, some Outlaw Rogues, a couple BMs, give or take. Destro Lock. Summer played Destro. Destro with Mayhem in this fight, I think it's very, very strong. I don't know if they played Mayhem or Havoc, but you can see if you want by clicking the log here. Destro Lock here. Destro Lock here. A handful of Destros in certain spots. Some AF a little bit here as well, but not terrible. A lot of Druid here, unsurprisingly. Just a good Druid fight. 3 permanent targets, you know. And then Smolderon. So this is the 7th boss in the raid, the boss before the second to last boss. This is a heavy, I guess, semi-heavy movement patchwork-based fight with a 100% damage amp in the intermission. If you collect all your orbs and build the boss up. So we ended up holding Lust in this fight to the 1 minute mark, which we had the damage amp on, then burst the boss down a bunch. Classes that can hold CDs at that point and burst a bunch, probably pretty strong. I don't know where Shadow's at, but Shadow doing very well. They were in the raid I was in. BM Hunter up here pretty high as well. A Ret, a Holy Havoc. The highest Warlock parse is actually me, right here playing AF. I can tell you that we scuffed this terribly. This fight, we had a pretty large raid size. My Dread touch uptime was like 65%. It's horrendous. And like the damage amp, I didn't do very well on it either. It was more like just live, survive, do mechanics. This fight, damage-wise, was likely a little overtuned. It took until the last pull of testing to kill it. But honestly, once you like min-max AF in this fight and like plan the movement out, it's actually probably pretty strong in the intermission. With your tier bonus, being able to dump multiple Raptures, all your dots up, big damage amp on them, at least the first 3 Raptures. AF's likely not too bad in this fight. You filter out like BM, filter out like Shadow and Red Paladin, which are probably getting hit a couple days. There's a decent bit of locks here. I mean, AF, but I mean, it makes sense. AF runs in that 1 minute profile we're talking about with Soul Rot and Vile Taint or Singularity. Probably not terrible. Look, even a Havoc Demon Hunter or 2. So This sheet will be updated over, I would assume, all of testing. It's not mine, but if you want it, once again, a link down below. Make your own copy and have fun with it. But keep in mind, once again, as cool as it is seeing numbers here, it's a great place. It's good to know where your class is sitting right now, but tuning is likely coming next week and for the probably the next few weeks after that as well. So take all this with a grain of salt, but well, I guess we know one thing's happening. BM is probably getting taken out back pretty soon. So thanks for watching, guys. Wraps it up. Hopefully it gave you all a better idea of where Warlock is sitting currently in 10.2 PTR. I feel like Aff and Destro had a decent performance in the raid. There are some outliers, like we saw in the sheet, which backs up my claims of certain things in the video testing footage we had here. I feel like Lock was not bad. We weren't like incredible, but we weren't like horrendous either. And with Demo being with us basically being a two-spec class right now, Demo needing either an overhaul or some massive changes, I think we fared relatively well. Felt good on Council. Obviously, Boom can destroy it if you have one in your raid. If not, you know, was probably pretty good either way. If they fix the AC bug with Aff, it's likely to get better there. Gnarl Root feels like a pretty good Aff fight. Seed and So, probably a good Demo fight too if they fix Demo. Igira feels okay, Destro. We'll see where it goes tuning-wise once BM other things are nerfed. And same time, Smolderon feels like a pretty good Aff fight if you can get the timing and things down. But yeah, honestly, Lock is probably not in a terrible spot. Not like Demo was with Exodia heading into Aberrus, but at the same time, well, look how all that turned out. So I'll take where we're at right now, and hopefully changes come in the next few days. Like always, Week of Warriors and add-ons, links to Twitch, Discord down below if you want them. At the same time, again, before we end the video, I want to give a shout out to my patrons for all support on Patreon, guys. Like always, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, link up here, as well as TikTok, Instagram, all that kind of stuff, Twitter if you want to follow there. Also, within a week and a half or so, the 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet will indeed be going up on Patreon for the Tier 3 Fail Guard rank or higher, if you want early access to that. Yeah, link up here. So we will see what happens in the next week or so of PTR, I suppose. I don't know what's going to happen with Demonology. I'm expecting to wake up on Monday with some blue posts talking about Warlock and probably just Demo. But at the same time, it might not get anything. Just some buffs. I don't know. Either way, Demo's going to get buffed. But I don't know if the buffs are going to accompany changes or not. But honestly, in the end, memes aside, Aff and Destro feel fine so far this raid. There's a few more fights. I think there's 5 more we haven't tested, but we're not testing Fire Axe. So 4 more. Thursday and Friday. I'm streaming it if you want to come by and watch it, or I'll have it up here as well. But yeah, Lock feels okay. If you exclude the outliers like Shadow and Rhett and Hunter, Lock's probably the best range. And those classes are probably going to get nerfed. But we'll see what happens. More to come. Stay tuned. So, all that thing said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton. I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.